Hey everyone, Josh here. So today we are doing every diesel owner's favorite crime to commit, and that's tampering with emissions, or also known as deleting your diesel. And we're doing it on the vehicle that came deleted from the factory, or at least tampered with from the factory, and that'd be the Volkswagen Jetta. So this is a 2012, so this video is going to be specifically on the 09 to 14 Jettas, Golfs, Beetles, sports wagons, and the Passats, the 2012s, 2014s, and then the 2015s, the last year of these. They're a little bit different, but kind of pertains to it as well. It's going to be a pretty information heavy video, so we're going to go over like the legality of it, which obviously it's not legal. What is deleting your vehicle if you don't know what that is, the pros and cons, and then we're going to get into kind of the meat and potatoes of it. We got the pipe kits, the tune kits, the whole combo, and then actually doing it. I'm doing it strictly for the video. I am not leaving it on here, so I'm not tampering with emissions. This is strictly just for the video, so this is going back to stock afterwards. The DPF and CAT are out getting repaired currently, so those are going back in when they come back. So let's get started. Okay, so legalities of it. So this is going to be pertaining strictly to US and Canada, because these are US and Canadian engines. Companies, tuning companies, exhaust companies, everybody's getting multi-million-dollar fines. There's also TV shows made that was strictly buying diesel vehicles, deleting them, fixing them, and then selling them, which also got fined. Then you got the companies themselves that are getting fined. So everybody knows, or at least if you have a TDI, you're gonna know the Volkswagen Dieselgate where they got fined. I think I got it written down here. 26 billion with a B. So that's 11 million cars worldwide that they had modified the emissions or tampered with the emissions. So basically it knew when it was being possibly tested or on a dyno, and then it knew kind of between like the hood latch sensor and like ABS wheel sensors, a lot of stuff. It kind of knew when it was on the road, and then it would alter the performance and also alter the emissions output. So Volkswagen wasn't the only one caught with it. We had Fiat Chrysler with like the Rams and the Jeeps. They got a $305 million fine. You had Mercedes with a 1.5 billion with a B fine. Also, North America's own, or Americans' own, Harley Davidson with motorcycles, they got a $12 million fine for selling handheld tuners that would alter performance and emissions. So all these companies, not just like tuning and exhaust, like even the manufacturers are getting big fines for altering emissions now. So you're thinking, so it's 2023, so what companies, what kind of back alleyway tuners are you finding that still offer delete tunes? And that is outside of the US, where the EPA possibly doesn't have jurisdiction. And that back alleyway would be Canada. So 2 out of the 3 TDI tuners that I would probably recommend, 2 of the 3 are in Canada. I'm not sure the legality of Canadian companies selling stuff to the States. I tried Googling it, if any truck tuners from Canada are getting fined by the EPA. I found one, but it was a paid article, so I didn't want to pay for it. So that doesn't seem to be as much of an issue yet, but that might be coming. And the other thing you have to be thinking about is all these tuning companies are going to have your mailing address, your name, all that stuff. So if they get cracked down by the EPA has a list of these are all the customers. So there's been very few people on a personal level that have been getting fined yet, but who knows? So I thought I'd just touch base quickly. So the US, you've got the EPA, certain states and counties and stuff, they don't necessarily have emissions testing, but it's still federally illegal to remove your emissions. And here in Canada, it's a little bit different. So it's a federal law not to tamper with emissions, but it is provincially enforced from what I could find. I'm not a lawyer. So it seemed to be all provinces and territories, except for Alberta and possibly Saskatchewan, it's still illegal. You get a fine. Alberta didn't have a rule about tampering emissions, so I don't know, you can still find street signs at shops offering to delete vehicles, so kind of take that as you will. So that's kind of legalities. It's illegal, doesn't matter how you cut it. Okay, so that's enough of looking at my face. So now we're gonna go over what are we actually deleting, or what does deleting your TDI or diesel really mean. So you've got 3 kind of parts that you're removing. So that's going to be the DPF. That's what filters out the particulate, which would be the black smoke. We've got EGR or EGRs, plural, on these TDIs. And then you've got the whatever controls the NOx. So that will be on these, the Jetta and sports wagons, Golfs and Beetles that don't have DEF. That is a NOx bank trap or NOx trap, which would kind of looks like a big cat. And then on the Passats and the 2015s, the Jettas and Golfs, all that have DEF, they have an SCR, which is selective catalyst reduction. So it's basically the DEF gets squirted into this little canister, the precious metals inside make the NOx go away. So we are physically removing these devices. So basically would you have your turbo here, and then I wish I still had the DPF here, but the DPF would install in this area. So it needs the heat to do the regen. It's got a DOC, which is diesel oxidization catalyst. So that is when diesel gets injected into it. That's what makes the heat to basically bake out the soot. You have your flex pipe, same thing on the original downpipe. And then on this non-DEF vehicle, we'd have that NOx trap cat would be right here. And then you've also got a few more components. You've got the exhaust flap, which it uses for regen, and then an H2S cat. The DPF with the DOC, that's a very expensive piece, as well as this cat that's got all the precious metals inside of it. This thing is apparently worthless. So if you have DEF, you're gonna have same thing. You're gonna have a DPF right here, and then your SCR, your selective catalyst reduction, would be right here, and you'd have a DEF injector right here. So the DEF gets injected into it. So that's basically the after treatment devices that you'd be removing. And then the other thing you'd be removing is your EGR. So this TDI would have two EGRs, a high pressure and a low pressure. So the high pressure would basically come off the turbo. It's got a little pipe that comes around and then feeds it into the intake. So the EGR is going to be fighting boost pressure. So it can be tricky with high boost to be able to get lots of EGR in there. So a way around that is making low pressure EGR. So I've done videos on basically removing all these components, so you can click down underneath in the description on what parts you want to jump around to. But this low pressure EGR, it would basically have a little filter that comes off the exhaust to there, gets cooled down, and then it gets fed into the inlet of the turbo. So it's pressure, somewhat pressurized exhaust getting fed into no pressure turbo. So you can jam a lot of nice clean EGR through into the car. Works great until it gets full of coolant or oil. So that's all the components that we're removing. So let's go over the pros and the cons and possibly why you do it. Okay, so you might be wondering why somebody would do this and like what are the pros and the cons. So these emissions devices on these vehicles work extremely well. So much so that Volkswagen, Daimler, and BMW did human and monkey testing to show how safe diesel exhaust was for humans and monkeys to be consuming. They also got $1 billion fine on that, I believe. So yeah, so when stuff is working correctly, it works really well. The issue is when it stops working. So the pros and the cons, I'm gonna start with cons first. Obviously I went over, it's illegal to remove the emissions. So I'm not gonna go over that again. It's bad for your health, and it's also bad for just life in general and the environment. We've only got one Earth, so it is what it is. And then the other issue is resale. So safety, emissions testing, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people don't want to touch deleted vehicles because it's very expensive to put all this emissions components back on. So it might take a bit of a hit on resale, or you might have a hard time reselling it, period. So that's just kind of, that is what it is. So the pros, the cost of parts. So when you have failures, like, so the DPF cracked on here, allowing soot out the back. It was putting soot out the back. So the DPF was cracked, which also plugged the EGR filter and the EGR cooler. So the DPF itself is $1,500 with another $1,000 core on it. The EGR filter is $400 to $500. You got the time, all that kind of stuff. It starts getting pretty expensive pretty quick. And same thing with DEF cars. You have the DEF header, which is I think about $500, and you have NOx sensors that are about $500. So when these components start failing, it gets expensive pretty quick versus just getting rid of it. The other issue, so the cars with DEF, you have a DEF countdown. So some vehicles are going to limit the speed you can drive, but Volkswagen, they made it where you couldn't drive it. So you have a 150-mile warning before it won't start. And they're not joking, it won't start. So you're gonna get trapped somewhere, especially after 2020 with the parts scarcity and getting stuff shipped over here. You could be stuck without a car. So that kind of sucks. The efficiency, you're gonna gain a lot of fuel mileage, anywhere from 2 to 10 miles to the gallon, kind of depending on the vehicle. You're gonna gain a lot of power. You can look at that nice free-flowing exhaust. There's already people talking about how just removing the cat, you can gain a bit of power, but the DPF is even more restrictive than just a cat. So that's kind of, it is what it is. If you're tuning it, you definitely makes it a bit tricky to keep emissions intact with like big turbos, injectors, that kind of stuff. And then obviously the last thing would be prolonged life. So these have to get really hot, like the little tiny turbo back here. It's going to be getting 11, 12, 13, 1400 degrees Fahrenheit to get it hot enough for the DPF to regen. So that's hard on components, having to get that hot. Okay, so you weighed out the pros and cons and you decide you're going to continue on with deleting your vehicle. So now we've got a bunch of options for the piping, for the actual tuning itself, and then some of these companies, they offer like a combo kit, everything together, buy everything all at once, and that's got everything that you need, hopefully. So we're going to go over them here now. So one option you can also, besides buying these nice stainless exhaust pipes, is you can hollow out your DPF and your cat, which is basically just getting a drill bit, poking holes up through it. The issue with that is the DPF on these cars, they come out at a 90 and then down, and same thing out the back. So you're gonna have to cut the DPF up to get everything out, which is fine. It's just, it takes a bit of work, and you have to weld it shut again. The other thing you need to consider is that the stuff is worth money. So the Passat DPF and cat are about $200 US, so that's $300 or $400 Canadian, and the CJAA DPF and cat is worth about 500 or 550 US, which is 750 Canadian or so. It fluctuates, but that's roughly that. So that's a good chunk towards these nice stainless downpipes without having to worry about hacking up your existing stuff. So that is what it is. So we're gonna go over these piping kits here now. I would recommend just getting a piping kit, and I'm gonna go over which ones I like and I don't like. So we're gonna use Canadian pricing here. So $1 Canadian is 74 cents US, or that's 70 cents in euro. So just kind of keep that in mind. You can do conversions if you don't like Canadian pricing. But anyways, we're gonna start off here right at the beginning. We're gonna do the most expensive, which is Rawtech ink. So that's a nice heavy 304 stainless downpipe. This is just going to be the Eco Kit. They're all going to be just the DPF and cat deletes. It's going to go back to your stock muffler, and it's going to have no cats, no resonators, anything like that, just strictly straight pipe. So they're all nice and even. So the Rawtech is definitely the heaviest, especially with this downpipe piece right here. It's got the block offs, all the adapters, everything that you need. It's definitely, the price kind of reflects that. So that's about 1,566 Canadian shipped to my door, which is a bit of money, especially when you buy a whole car for $2,000. So kind of, it is what it is. But anyway, so it's 304 stainless, so nice stuff. It's definitely probably the heaviest duty one here, and it's probably one of the more popular kits to buy. Up next, we're going to go to Tune My Euro, which was the Buzzkin Delete Kit. So same thing, 2.5-inch DPF delete. You have to fill out some stuff. You understand it's off-road use only, your car. Yeah, no options to straight pipe, and downsize it to meet the factory muffler. So it's all mandrel bends, everything's nice and looks decent. I've never seen one of these kits in person. I've seen the Rawtech. but it is what it is. It's 409 stainless, so it will get surface rust on it. Yeah. All these kits also, they use the OBD, or not the OBD, but the O2 sensor or lambda sensor, and some might use one EGT sensor, but most of them don't use any. Again, this comes with band clamp you need. It doesn't have one at the back. Well, I don't think either does the Rawtech kit, where it goes to stock, and it still has the low pressure EGR plug. So this kit here, the BuzzCon kit, that is 1,175 Canadian shipped to my door. The shipping's a little bit less than the Rawtech kit. I think that was about $150. So yeah, that's a good $400 cheaper than the Rawtech. Up next, we're going to do Dark Side Developments. I haven't seen this kit either in person, but we're doing the DPF delete kit, 2.5-inch secondary cat delete pipe, 2.5-inch downpipe, and then it has to use 316 stainless. They don't offer 304. I believe it comes with all these blocker plates and everything, so it's everything you need. Dark Side stuff's usually pretty high quality components, so I would imagine it would fit nice. Yeah, the issue is kind of 316 versus 304 stainless, and the other issue is shipping's quite expensive from across the pond. So the Dark Side kit comes in, it's about $3 cheaper than the BuzzCon kit, so it's $1,172 Canadian shipped to my door. I don't know if I would go with this kit, mainly as you don't know taxes and duties to get it into your country. But it does look nice. The next kit is the Flow Direct kit. So this is made in Quebec, so it's already Canadian made. It's 304 stainless. It's all nice mandrel bends. You've only got the welds at the flex pipe and at the adapter right on the V-band. So that's nice. And then the hanger usually comes with a slip fit, so you kind of adjust it as you need be, so it fits really nice. I've seen these in person and I really like these. They're definitely my go-to for the higher quality one. So personally, it would be between the Flow Direct or the Rawtech, with the Rawtech being a lot more money. So this is $700 Canadian, so that's under half the price of the Rawtech kit. And I would say it's just as quality. It's not quite as heavy downpipe, but it's just exhaust. The next kit that I would recommend if you're on a really tight budget will be the Profi-Diesel kit. So it's 249 euros, which is about 415 Canadian. The part I don't like about this kit is it shows it attaching, I just lost the picture. Anyways, it shows attaching halfway down your car, which for these North American vehicles, it doesn't actually fit. We've got the exhaust flap there, and then we have a secondary cat back here yet. So I'm gonna go over it. This is the kit I have here. I'm gonna install it later in this video. The issue is it's obviously not gonna work. You're gonna have to modify it a bit. You need about 2 feet of piping and a bunch more clamps. The other part is this kit doesn't come with any blocker plates, so depending on how you're gonna bypass your EGR, you're gonna need to buy blocker plates on top. If you don't want to do any modifying, Profi-Diesel, they also have the DPF and cat delete, which this appears like it's going to bolt in behind your secondary cat. Both of these kits are 304 stainless. I've got this one installed right now. It didn't fit the greatest, it needed a bunch of modification, which I'll go over. But if you're on a tight budget, this would be what I would recommend. And still have a full exhaust. The final option here is the Dark Side hood stack, which some people like hood stacks. Kind of it is what it is. That's about $371 Canadian, so it's about $25 less than the Profi-Diesel complete kit. So that's kind of it is what it is. The Profi-Diesel, for the money, you can't make it for that. It's got a lot of welds, so I was a little concerned of welds cracking down the road here, and it's also got a connection here and a connection here or somewhere in here. So yeah, more connections, more likely to leak, but at least you have a full exhaust versus just doing a hood stack. but it's personal preference. So personally, myself, if you want a decent kit that isn't really expensive, I would definitely go with a Flow Direct kit from McEvo. If you're on a really tight budget, I would go with the Profi-Diesel. And if you've got a lot of money, I would definitely recommend the Rawtech. It's definitely the heaviest duty one. So that covers off all of the exhausts. So now we're going to do tuning. So we got 3 companies, but only 2 of them are going to do deletes. So first off is Tunezilla, which is Malone. So there's 2, depends if you have a DSG or if you have a 6-speed manual. If you have a DSG, you can only get a 0.5 tune from Malone without getting a DSG tune, which is another $300 or $400. The 0.5 tune, you got 18 wheel horse, so it's a decent jump. But if you're going to do a DSG tune, or if you have a manual, I just get the stage 2 tune, which is 30 horse, liven it up a little bit. So the tune from Malone, you're going to get the tune, and you're also going to get the Flashzilla, so then you can upload the tune yourself. So the 0.5 tune is $920 Canadian, and the stage 2 tune is $988 with the Flashzilla, which is $250. So you're pretty well $1,000. That's a fair chunk of money, but it comes with some stuff. You can click on the deletes are free for off-road use only. So that's probably the most popular company. Next option is MR Tuning. So this website's originally French, but Google will translate it to English. You can go over whatever stage you want. So this company, they somehow make it work that you can have a stage 2 tune without DSG tuning. So at least when I purchased it, it's $700 with the Flashzilla, so we're $300 cheaper than the Malone, and it comes with both a stage 2 and a stage 1, which on their manuals they said it was a 25 horse and a 55 horse tune. The 55 horse tune runs pretty nice, it really wakes it up. The DSG tune, I think from either company, is definitely worth the money, but yeah, you're another $300-400 on top of the tune itself, and then you've also got the piping, so it starts getting pretty expensive for this. So that's kind of whatever you want to do. Stage 2 tune without DSG tuning works pretty good. And then our last option here is Kerma TDI. So they do not do delete tunes. They're located in the States, so that's probably part of the reason. But anyways, so they are $917 with emissions intact, so that's about $100 less than the Malone and about $200 more than the MR tuning. It kind of comes down to what you want to do. If you're going to get the emissions intact tuning, I would maybe get it from a company that provides delete tunes, and then all you have to do is pay the price difference between the tune you have and the delete tune, because you've already got the Flashzilla or the Power Gate for these companies. If you buy a Kerma TDI tune and then down the road you want to delete it, you're going to have to buy a whole new tune, a whole new flasher, and it gets pretty expensive. But yeah, if you don't think you're ever going to delete the car, then Kerma TDI is an option. Basically, it's 34 horse tune. Got all the selling features here, and the part that I find pretty interesting at the bottom of this one is all emission systems are kept intact and must remain installed, which is obvious. Exhaust flow is not an issue. Labor is also very expensive, which is typically 8 hours, which seems pretty high. I'm not going to talk about that. So they suggest saving your money and spending it on something else that helps your build, i.e. suspension, brakes, or upgraded turbo. The very next sentence, we also have replacement DPFs in stock if needed. So I've had 3 or 4 of these cars with cracked DPFs, so it's definitely a known issue. So it's just kind of funny that they'd say the emissions are great, there's no exhaust flow issues, and then also if you need DPF, click right here. So that should kind of give you a bit of a sign, but anyways. So I have done videos on MR tuning. I'm going to do one on the CJAA here shortly. I've already done the Passat video. They work really good. Fuel mileage increase is awesome. There's nothing wrong with Malone as well. I would definitely recommend them as well. So these would be the 2 companies I would recommend for tuning your common rail TDI. So lastly here, we're going to do the entire combo kits. Might save a little bit on shipping, especially here in Canada. Shipping's expensive. So from Rawtech Inc. themselves, you can get the Stage 2 DPF Delete tune and their piping, which is going to be, it's about $27.50 Canadian. So yeah, that's a fair chunk of change. Comes with everything you need all together, shipping's all together, you're good to go. The next option is from Buzzken, which is the Malone tuning with the Buzzken exhaust. So same kind of deal, you're $27.50, so they're right borderline the same price. Personally, if you're spending the money, I would probably go Rawtech, but that is what it is. I think both these companies will do 10 or 15% off for like Black Friday and stuff like that. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And then the last option would be the MR tuning and flow direct combination. So this is from EcoDiesel Owners Canada Performance Parts. So you can get it from them. They have a nice online storefront. Whereas MR tuning, you can get the same kit from them, but you have to email them. Same thing if you're doing the tuning. You have to email them to get the tuning. There's no storefront on their website. So that just is what it is. But yeah, the EcoDiesel Owners Canada page, you can order it right on here. It's got, if you want to do a DSG tune, you can click on that. And they also have switch on the fly tuning for the DSG. The nice part of both of the MR tuning, whether you're just getting the tune or if you're getting the entire kit, they're going to send you both your 25 horse and 55 horse tunes together. You're not paying, you have the option to switch between the two. They also have different options that come with it as well. So personally, for $1,500, so that's $1,200 less than the Rawtech or the Buzzken kit. You can get this kit from EcoDiesel Owners or MR Tuning. So this would definitely be my preferred kit to get. Fits nice, the tuning's awesome. Yeah, that's all I can say there. The last one's not necessarily a kit, but if you're on a really tight budget, if you haven't figured out, probably the best deal would be get the Profi-Diesel Downpipe along with your MR tuning. It all works together, and you can have it deleted for about $1,100 Canadian. So it's a little bit less than their Flow Direct kit, but obviously the Profi-Diesel has some issues with the downpipe. So that's going to cover all this off. So up next we're going to do actually installing the Profi-Diesel kit. So it's really not too bad, but you've got to get the components out. So I'm going to show you how to do that first, and we're going to jump to actually installing it. All right, so you've got the kit that you need. You know what tuning you're going to use, so now you want to know how to actually install it. So if you go to the channel here, you click on playlists, and then if you have a Jetta, Golf, Sportswagen, or the Beetle, you want to click on the Common Rail TDI. So view full playlist. So then you're going to scroll down. You're going to click on the EGR removal video. So you can figure out which way you're going to delete the EGR. And then you can also click on the removing of the DPF and CAT for repair purposes. So that these two videos are going to get you everything apart, and then I'm going to film how to get this back together. I haven't done, I did this video on the MR tuning versus original. I'm going to do, that was on a CJAA Passat. I'm going to do it on a Sportswagen here shortly. But yeah, so that's going to cover that one off. If we go back, okay, so you come back here, you're going to click on the Passat playlist. You can scroll down. So then we've got the CJAA Passat DPF SCR and low pressure EGR removal. You can also check out the comparison video, and the EGR is very similar as well. So if you click on that, that should get you where you kind of need to go. So that's going to get everything apart. So then we can do the video of actually, or part of the video now, installing this delete pipe. Okay, so let's get to installing the DPF delete. So you clicked on this video because you saw the nice title, delete your TDI for free or something along those lines. So I'm going to go over how you can achieve that. So first off, so the Jetta, Sportswagen, Golf, and Beetle without DEF, the DPF, which has the DOC in it, as well as your Knox Bank Trap Cat, both of those are worth money. So that's about $750 Canadian at this time. Might fluctuate a little bit. So you can recycle that. So then I already went over the Profi-Diesel pipe, and the MR tuning tune is $1,100. So you've got about $350 you got to make up here yet to make it free. So there's a possibility your exhaust flap might be okay. Your EGR cooler might be okay. And then you end up with all these spare EGT sensors, as well as a O2 sensor. And you also end up with 2 pressure differential sensors. So vehicles that can't be deleted for legal reasons, you might be able to sell these on eBay to make up the remaining $350. But that's pretty well close to free, especially when you're considering modifying vehicles. So we're gonna go over this Profi-Diesel pipe itself, why I like it and why I don't like it. So right off the bat, I like it because of its cost, and it fits okay. I can't make one for the price that this was bought for, but there is a bit of an issue, which I covered off there in that video, and that is this end pipe here. So this is basically a DPF and CAT delete. So it says it fits North American vehicles, but the issue is we're about 2 feet short of deleting both CATs. So this would reach to right about where that exhaust flap is. And if you look, that's like a V-band connector. So you're gonna have to either modify that nice end with a V-band on it and keep these components, or you're gonna have to buy 2 feet of exhaust piping, and then it works okay. So that's kind of the downside of that. The more expensive one, I think, should work correctly, but the issue with that is that's an extra $100 Canadian, whereas like that piping is probably 20 bucks. So that's it. The other thing I don't like, which we'll show once it's in there, is this fitment of this bottom pipe. So this would sit like that in the car. We've got AC lines that are extremely tight right here, and we have the steering rack, which is extremely tight right here. And then this mount itself, I can't get it off here now, but they're crow's foot, like they were bent in, or maybe they're bent out, but either way, they did not fit very well into here, and I had to trim off a good 3 inches to get it to actually line up. So again, you can't make it for the price that you bought this, or I bought this for, but it does need some work versus the other companies. Okay, so right off the hop, we're gonna get this downpipe, the U part installed. So the two part piece is kind of nice for this part of it, at least. You do end up with more connections, which might leak, and more clamps, but at least for getting it into a situation, you can just kind of grab it, shove it down there, and then clamp it onto the turbo. So I need 2 hands for this, so I'm gonna put the phone down, but it's not rocket science. Okay, so that pipe's sitting in there. I've got it just loose. We're gonna have to move it around to kind of decide on clearance between the AC lines and the steering rack once I get this piece in. So this is kind of what I was meaning by they don't quite line up. It's not too far out, but it's about a hole's width out, so you can kind of stretch and make it work, but it is what it is. So I've had to cut this thing. This will be my 3rd try of trying to get this in there. It was about this long, so it does need some modification. Okay, so here's the part I wasn't a huge fan of. So we've got AC lines. I can just fit my hand in between the downpipe and the AC lines, and then I'm not sure I can get up there high enough. But I can't quite fit my hand between the flex pipe and the heat shield for the steering rack. It seems the farther you bring this back closer to the AC lines, the more it tilts up and gets this away. So it's a balancing act. What piece do you want it closer to? So I think ideally, if this section in here could be 1/2 inch shorter, that should get this piece up higher away from the rack, and then we can maybe tilt it farther ahead because there's no fitment issues above. I can probably fit 3 hands above it, so that's just kind of it. So unless you're gonna cut and re-weld this, that's gonna be how it's gonna be. Okay, so I tightened up the clamp up here. So now we're gonna do our cat's delete. So this is the original piece that it came with. So I need my 2 foot, or I think it was 23 inches piping in front of it. So the nice part about this kit is it's 304 stainless. I've got 409 from when I did my V10 downpipes, which is metallic stainless. And then I've got 304 from when I did a second set of V10 downpipes. So just so happens it's exactly the length I need. I already cut this off of just a long chunk that I had. So I'm gonna put this 304 in instead. Okay, so my filming angle's not gonna be very great because I'm just doing this on jack stands. So that's the Profi-Diesel downpipe. This is the slip fit to my 2 foot chunk of stainless piping. I'm using a 2.5 inch traditional band clamp to slide the 2 pieces together. And then the Profi-Diesel end piece goes to your factory over the axle. So this is 2 1/8 or 2 3/16. So I can't find band clamps that size, so I'm using the OEM inside piece with a band clamp on top. The OEM stuff turns to dust pretty quick up here in Canada, so just kind of making do with what I got here. So I've got everything kind of sitting nice how I want it, so I'm going to go across and tighten all these clamps up. Okay, so here's all the pipes nice and tight together. That's got to be pretty tight to kind of get clamped in. These band clamps, they work nice. I prefer the band clamps, but it is what it is. So we're going to start it up here and first off see how it sounds, and second off check for leaks. Okay, so we're going to run it briefly, that way I don't kill myself inside of the garage here. Check for leaks. All looks pretty good. I'll put my microphone here by the tailpipe. Okay, so now that the exhaust is installed, now we gotta go over all these electrical connectors. So we gotta clean up all this stuff. So the only sensor that we're gonna be using is your O2 sensor. We've got all these empty connectors now. We've got the differential sensor here. We've got the EGR differential sensor plug here. The low pressure EGR sensor, or just the plug. We've got all your EGT sensors. That's your O2 sensor plug-in. And then if we go underneath, we've got, I can't remember, that might be the O2 sensor. That's an EGT sensor, and that's the exhaust flap, maybe, or maybe that one and that one are mixed up. But anyways, I made videos on both the Passats and all the other ones on how to get to that point, basically. So if you are removing your components, all these plugs are going to be open. So I would smear a little bit of dielectric grease in there and then just kind of tuck them away so they're out of the way. That way, if you ever do want to put your emission components back on, their pins won't all be corroded, and it also helps keep water out of the connectors in case you might throw a short code, like a sensor short code. So that's just something I would do personally. But that's up to you. So anyways, so that's the end of that. The Profi-Diesel kit fit okay. If I was to do this, I would do the MR tuning and flow direct pipe. It fits 100%, and the MR tuning is a great tune. So I'll do a video on, I've already done a video on the Passat on the MR tuning, how well it worked with it. So I'll probably do a video on this one here yet as well. But anyways, so I know this is a longer video, so if you're stayed to this point, thanks for watching, and make sure you check out the other videos.